The P.O.L.I.C.E principle, also called as the P.O.L.I.C.E protocol. Previously, the RICE protocol was used, which was rest, ice, compression and elevation. But nowadays, we make use of the P.O.L.I.C.E protocol. So P stands for protection, O.L for optimal loading, I for ice, C for compression and E for elevation. So what is protection? Protection is done during the initial 24 to 48 hours. It does not mean complete immobilization. For example, using crutches to protect the lower limb, or else by making use of a splint. That is, appropriate amount of rest is supposed to be taken. Next we have optimal loading. In optimal loading, it stimulates the healing process, which also means weight bearing or performing any movements. Or other examples include contraction of the calf muscles to move the swelling upwards. This is done by making use of crutches or braces. Next we have ice. Ice causes vessel constriction. Ice should be wrapped in a damp towel or a cloth because the damp towel is going to act like a wet barrier, and this icing is done for about 20 minutes. Compression. This is done by applying a bandage. You need to start distal to the limb and move proximally. Next we have elevation. Elevation of the limb is important because it increases the venous return to the systemic circulation, therefore reducing the edema.